Alright, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thought I'd do something a little different in honor of Halloween. I thought I would go into some of the spooky, scary stories that spooky events that I've experienced out in the woods. I grew up playing in the woods. Spent a lot of time in the woods, and I've seen some things that I can't really explain. I mean, I probably could explain a lot of them. None of these are going to be like supernatural, but they're definitely scary stories. I think spooky implies a little bit more of a supernatural element. There are some that have that element, but it's nothing crazy. It's nothing like, oh, my friend and I were camping and I saw my friend standing outside our campsite when I went to the bathroom, and when I got back in my tent, they were back in the tent as well. Nothing Skinwalker or Wendigo-ish or anything like that. No creepypastas here. But yeah. So I guess I'll start with my first experience of something that kind of freaked me out in the woods. I grew up next to a small park with a good chunk of woods attached to it. I mean, the woods are probably 3 times as big as the park itself, and it's just here in town. I mean, it's nothing too big. I mean, it's probably like 4 or 5 acres of woods, but I would go there a lot. So as a kid, I would go there to hunt for bugs and lizards and snakes and stuff and all that, and find them, catch them, and then release them. Big fan of Steve Irwin when I was a kid. Still am. Steve Irwin's an awesome dude. Rest in peace. So I had caught this particularly large wolf spider, and I mean, it was pretty big. I mean, it was like $half sized before the ends of the legs. I don't know how to describe it better than that, but yeah, it was a pretty big spider, and I caught it in this birdhouse thing, or bird feeder, that had clear sides, and the stuff would all spill out at the bottom, but I had flipped it so I could keep bugs in it, and I think I showed it to my mom. I don't know if she would remember this, but I don't even think I told them what I saw out there, but still to this day I don't know what it was that I saw. So I showed my mom this big spider, and she's like, go put that in the woods. And I said, okay. I was probably maybe 8 or 9-ish. Sorry, I'm gonna get this light lit back up again. It may only be this one light, but we'll see. So I take this spider down in the woods, and there's this big bend in the trail that leads downhill into a creek, and so there's like a lot of visibility. There's not a lot of trees. It's a slope, and it's pretty grassy. So I'm carrying this bird feeder with this big spider in it, and I come across this bend, and there's something sitting next to the creek. Now, me as a kid, I'd never seen anything like this. It was a big white animal, and I mean, it was probably about this tall sitting down, which I would say probably like 3.5 feet. Looking back, it could have very easily just been a big dog that someone had gotten loose from somebody, but it was sitting next to the creek, and I remember I froze because I was like, I don't know what that is. I just saw it from behind. It wasn't a person either. I saw fur very distinctly. There was no wide shoulders or anything. But yeah, it could have absolutely just been a dog, but I froze, and it scared me so bad that I like set the spider down in its bird feeder slowly, and like put it over on its side, and I just ran all the way back to this park and all the way back to the bathroom and locked myself in, because I didn't know if it was chasing me, which if it was a wild animal, could have very easily chased me down. Yeah, that was the first time, and I had to go back later that day. I wanted to make sure that the spider had gotten out of that container, but I waited like 4 or 5 good hours. I don't think I even told my parents about this. But yeah, I went back and everything, and got the birdhouse. I didn't want to leave that either, or the bird feeder rather. And I went back and grabbed that, and I was too scared at that point to go check to see if there was anything down by that creek. But I went back the next day to see if I could find anything. It was during a summer, and yeah, I went back and there was nothing. There was no like white fur in the area. There was no footprints or anything. To the 8-year-old me, the best of my tracking ability then. But yeah, I would say it was like the first like brush with something spooky in the woods. That's not like the scariest story or anything. Like I said, it was probably dog, and I just freaked myself out. But I thought about that for years. I still think about that every single time I go down in those woods. Yeah. So let's see, probably the next experience that I had. Ooh, there's one or two. So this one's like a little mini story. So I had gone out with some friends, about 3 other friends, to the woods where I usually film, and I'd gone out there with them, and we all, were hanging out there doing our thing, getting up to whatever teenagers are doing. I'm a teenager at this point, and it was probably 75 degrees, I think, and I wrote this experience down and everything because it was just so unusual. So it was about 75 degrees. It was warm but not hot, but humid also. And we were all gathered around, sitting there and everything. And we didn't have like a fire going or anything. But I don't know, the woods, the feeling of the woods changed. And we could all see our breath. And those 3 other people, one of them I don't think even remembers this. I've talked to him about it since, but he said he doesn't even remember going out. But we could all see our breath, like, you can't really see it right now, but we could all see our breath, and it was just so unusual. That was pretty much it. Nothing happened or anything, but we could all see our breath, and it was just so unusual. Being as warm as it was, I could understand, like fall right now, 2 days before Halloween, I'm filming this, but I could see it at a time like this. But yeah, I still have no explanation about that. I mean, nothing happened. We went home, and we were like, wow, wasn't that weird? No, I'm not going to relight those, so we'll have to deal with a little bit less light. So I would say the next one was, I had moved from Missouri to North Carolina. I grew up here in Missouri, and so I moved to North Carolina. I was living with my brother-in-law and my sister and their kids, and we lived next to these woods that, of course, I had to go mess around in, because woods. And I would always feel watched out there, especially when I was alone. I mean, it was intense. It was like the feeling of being somewhere, and I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have experienced the feeling of being somewhere and feeling like we're being not just watched, but actively, like, I don't know how to describe it, but like the intention of the watching is just like purely on you, like the feeling of a predator just out of sight, just waiting for an opportunity to pounce. So like watching with intention. I don't know how to describe it other than that. I'm sure, comment down below if you've experienced that feeling. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like that feeling that something is just watching you and waiting for a chance to do something. I mean, nothing obviously happened, except I told my family about this, and this was like probably 2011, so this was like peak of ghost hunter shows. So my family was like, oh, well, it's probably ghosts, Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters and all those shows from that era. And so we thought we'd do like a paranormal investigation, and we went out, and had a stupid Spirit Box app on our phones. You know, this is just when phones were starting to get weird apps like that. And it would just like spout out random words, and it would have there was a ghost map and stuff, and it would show like blips on the radar. I don't believe any of that was legit. I think it was just silly apps. But on the way back, my brother-in-law complained that his back was burning, and I'm sure, I don't know if my brother-in-law watches the channel, or I think my sister does. I've seen her on a couple live streams, but she confirmed this. But we came back from this, you know, thing. My brother had gotten pretty aggressive calling out these alleged ghosts, and we got back and we were under a street light, and he's like, man, my back is really burning, because we had cut from the deep part of the woods to a street we had found that we knew looped all the way back around to the beginning of our property, and there was a street light, and yeah, my brother-in-law was complaining that his back like burned, and there was just these scratches down his back. Still no explanation for that. I don't think he had a reason to lie about that, really, but yeah, that was pretty much it. And it was an unusual thing that happened. So get into my next story with that. This one's spooky, not because it's a ghost or anything, but because it was probably a mountain lion, which I would argue is a little bit scarier than a ghost. So we, in that same piece of property we were living in, we had a very long gravel driveway, and we had a little bit of a light on the porch, but there was no other light. I mean, it's probably a 300-yard driveway. So halfway up that, there was this telephone pole that, you know, helped. There would be like a telephone pole for the main electric line for the street, and then it came to our yard, and the driveway was so long it had to have a second telephone pole to support the wire in the middle so it wouldn't sag too much. And we had 2 dogs at the time, and I had taken them out, and it was a Great Dane, and we had a Black Lab as well. And sorry for the cars passing in the background. But I had taken these dogs out, and you know, dogs, if you have dogs, you know dogs usually like to linger outside well beyond the time when they've gone to the bathroom. They sniff around. That's usually not a problem. We were out in the boonies, so I just let them, you know, wander around the yard. So I usually would go about halfway up the driveway, right next to that light, or the telephone pole. And I was halfway up there, the dogs were right there next to me, and then just suddenly, you know, this big Great Dane, which she was a big wuss, but she was, you know, still a pretty big dog. She's a big scaredy cat though, but suddenly it's like our Black Lab and our Great Dane had just sprinted right back to the house, ran up on the porch, and just sat right by the door. They didn't even go to the bathroom. I mean, it literally took the time for me walking from the house to that post. Literally in that time, they didn't go to the bathroom or anything. They just went back, and I was like, what are you guys doing? And then of course this was the age of, you know, the beginning of cell phones. Like I had my same phone, and you know, it didn't even have like a flashlight like our phones have nowadays, but you could get an app where it would turn your screen white, and you can kind of use that as a rudimentary flashlight, which, you know, didn't do anything beyond like looking on the floor for something. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to these dogs, and we had a tree line that was, you know, ran parallel with the driveway that kind of separated our property. So it's like our driveway was this long strip, our yard was this long strip. It was kind of like a rectangular patch where there was no trees, so there's trees on either side. But something had come, and this was fall. Something had come from the tree line, and I saw enough of it. I saw its silhouette, and I saw the movement. And completely silently. And when I mean silently, I mean there was leaves on the ground. The leaves did not get rustled at all. And this telephone pole was probably, I don't know, maybe 15 feet from the driveway. And so I just see this silhouette of this thing. It just moved so quick and so silently, and it just crouched down right next to that telephone pole. And it was a quadruped. I'm pretty sure it was a mountain lion at this point, which arguably is scarier than a ghost. Mountain lions are terrifying. I think they can jump 30 feet in like a second. But so I see this, and obviously freaked out, and so I had my flashlight app already open, and I kind of turned towards it, see a little bit of eye shine, and it was probably 2.5 feet, 3 feet off the ground. I saw the eye shine, and then I saw it go down low, and that's never a good sign. If you see eye shine in the forest and it gets like right down next to the ground from a higher point, that's probably a predator. That's a good rule of thumb. Because like deer don't do that, other animals don't do that. And this was, in the mountains of North Carolina, so of course there's, wildlife out there, bears, mountain lions. But so I just very slowly, like, making sure to keep eye contact with the thing, because that's one of the things that predators look for, is they wait for you to turn around, triggers something called a predatory response. So if you're ever in a situation with a predator, never turn your back on them, never fall down, never get low, and never run, because all those things will trigger a predatory response. I knew that at this time because I had gone through, like, camps and stuff, and my love of the outdoors and all that. I was over 18 at this point, so I knew that. So I just backed up all the way up to my door, and got inside. The dogs were just whimpering on the porch this entire time, and we went inside and stayed inside. I don't think I went out the rest of that night. But yeah, that was definitely a spooky experience, a scary experience. Probably a mountain lion, to be honest. Let's see, what would be the next one? I'm trying to do them in like chronological order so I can remember them right. It was an interesting thing, actually. There was tales in the mountains of that forest. I told one of the locals about my experiences out there, that it was, the woods were spooky, and it always felt like I was being watched. And I would, stay out till after dark sometimes, which was dumb, especially considering there were bear and mountain lion out there. It turned out okay. One of the local people told me about the Moonite people. The Native Americans in that area had a myth that there was this other race of people that lived underground, and they couldn't bear the sunlight, but they would, peek out from their little caverns and caves and holes and stuff to watch people in their forests. If you found like a stone knife or, found tools out in the forest, you should leave it, because even if you want it, or you should declare it to the Moonite people and be like, hey, I want this thing that I found. Yeah, really interesting thing. I don't think it was Moonite people, but it could just be, the heebie-jeebies, the forest paranoia, I like to call it. And that's definitely a thing. So let's see. So after that, my brother-in-law, my sister, that whole family, we all moved to Missouri, back to my hometown where I was from, but they had never lived there. Mostly to get some support. We were not doing well financially, so my parents moved us back out here. North Carolina is an absolutely beautiful state, but it's really, at least the area we lived in, there was no jobs. I think there was 200 people in the town that we lived in, and we even moved to one of the bigger cities, but it was Hickory, North Carolina, the bigger city that we moved to, and I mean, there was just no jobs unless you were a furniture upholsterer, because, fun fact, Hickory, North Carolina, at least at the time, was the biggest producer of furniture in the United States. So that was all the jobs that were open. But yeah, there was just no jobs, and we just struggled financially and called it quits, moved back here. And yeah, so I would say after that, so my nephew and I were still close and everything, and I was doing, I was really starting to get into, you know, practicing survival skills, putting together survival kits and going out. And I had decided to go on this trip to this state park, which you were not supposed to camp in. You weren't supposed to camp in, so we did a little stealth camping anyway. My nephew, who was about 13 or 14 at the time, maybe even 15. So we'd gone out there. I specifically did not bring a firearm because I did not want to, if we got caught out there, I didn't want them to think we were poaching. Oh, hello. Telling spooky stories, and this cat showed up. He's very talkative. Come over here and be quiet. Come hang out. We call him Mao because he never stops meowing. But yeah, so hi. Sorry for the interruption there. You're probably gonna hear him the rest of the video. Come here. But so we decided to do this trip, and I had a very minimal gear set. I think he had a little tent. We had the ability to make fire. We had, I had one of those crappy, I don't know why I didn't bring a better flashlight, but all I had was this crappy little, it would be one of those ones where you'd like, it was like $2 on Bud K or something. I was broke at the time, so I didn't really have a whole lot of money. Sorry. I don't know why people are doing like 50 through my neighborhood where it's 15 miles an hour. Yeah, off topic. But Mal, so we had decided to, you know, camp and everything, and all I had was a crappy little flashlight. We had a tarp, I had a hammock, we had the ability to make fire, and I had, of course, a belt knife. I always take a belt knife out no matter what. But that was all we brought, and everything went great. You know, we built a very small, very well-managed fire and everything. We had, you know, like a stone fire ring set up that we had made, and everything was fine until about 3 in the morning. I was in my hammock, and my nephew was in his little tent, and we'd been dropped off. That was an important thing. My brother-in-law had dropped us off so there wouldn't be a car there. There wouldn't be a car, so they wouldn't know anyone was there. We went really deep. I mean, we were probably 4, maybe 5 miles one way next to a creek, pretty far from roads. So the area, there's a lot of areas like this. The area that I filmed is very similar, and it was a canyon, but there'd be these rock ledges kind of periodically throughout the canyon with that creek. But so we had camped, you know, probably 20 feet off the creek. It was on a little bit higher of a spot, so I wasn't worried about flash flooding or anything. It was also fall. Realizing a lot of these things happen around fall. But so sorry, I'm just getting distracted easily. So we were camping and everything was fine. 3 in the morning hit, and then we just hear something rustling on a higher ridge, and this ridge came down and kind of melded with the area that we were in. So there was something on that ridge just walking back and forth, and it was, you know, fall. There was lots of fallen leaves, lots of sycamore in this area, so those leaves are very big and very loud. So of course we could hear this thing moving on this ridge line, and I at first thought it was just a deer. I'm like, you know, I'm not really that worried about it, until it started charging the camp. It would run back and forth on this ledge. Say this is the ledge, and it would run back and forth. We're right here. It would run back and forth, and then run partway down this hill, and it was big, whatever it was. I still to this day have no idea what it was. It was People have told me it was a bear. Some people have told me it was a coyote with rabies. I get told all kinds of different stuff. I'll never know, really. So I was running back and forth on this ledge, and then it would run down the side. And, you know, of course, I didn't have a firearm. I didn't have a flashlight, so I couldn't really see it. I did have a flashlight, but it's a bad one. Essentially, you know, I cranked up this little crappy light, and it would be bright while it was, you know, for like 3 seconds, enough to get an eye shine off of it. And it was doing, you know, bobbing its head up and down, you know, trying to size up our campfire area. So I had my nephew, while I was keeping an eye on it, just put big armfuls of leaves on the fire. I'm sure most of you are watching have, you know, probably thrown a bunch of leaves on a fire at some point. Bye. Our guest left. So, but yeah, so whenever you do that, it makes the fire build up just for a second, just enough to like see. And I got a good estimate of how tall it was, because I could see the ground, but it was far away, so I couldn't really see what it was on the ledge. But I saw its eye shine. I saw that it was, you know, the eyes were kind of, you know, doing this number and getting really low, which is a bad sign. Sign of almost guaranteed to be a predator. So this freaked me and my nephew out. You know, he was 13. I was probably maybe 20. I think I was 21 at this point. So I was like, oh, we need to get out of here. I called my brother-in-law to come pick us up, and we had to hike the 5 miles. We went through the creek because that was just the fastest, most direct way. But we hiked all that way, and the thing followed us the entire way. It followed us off that ridge line, got down to where we were at. We put the fire out and everything. And we even left some of our camping gear because we were like, let's move quick, let's move light, let's just get out of here. He left his tent, I left my hammock. So we just, you know, booked it all the way back, you know, and waited on my, you know, I think my brother-in-law was there waiting for us, and we got in and left. Man, it was just terrifying, you know. Still to this day, if I get caught in an area like that, or I'm out in that same exact state park, and I get caught after dark, it's still, you know, kind of freaks you out. And of course, like, a situation like that kind of gives you this paranoia of the woods. So we went back the next day, well into the daylight. I think it was like 2 in the afternoon or something, to go get our stuff, make sure the fire had gone out properly and everything. And I wanted to see if I could see any tracks, or see if anything was disturbed on the ridgeline. The leaves were disturbed, but I'm sure most of you know that it's pretty hard to see tracks in leaves. You know, I did not find a single track. Still to this day, don't know what it was. In my area, there's not really mountain lions. And there's not really brown bears, but you see them sometimes. The conservation department says there's none here, but that's wrong, because I see pictures all the time. I've seen bears on the side of the road. A bear is the only thing that makes sense for the height that I could see the eyes at and everything, and like for the aggressive behavior, because mountain lions don't really do that. And that was another thing, was that whatever this was did not make a single like grunt or anything. It just would be very aggressive, and, you know, charging the camp. And sorry, I'm trying to maintain my lights. But yeah, it would just charge the camp over and over again. It was just really, I was more scared from, you know, because I had my nephew out there. I was like, I don't want anything to happen to him. But yeah, now I've brought I bring a much better flashlight out every time I go out, no matter what. That's one thing. And then I also make sure to bring some sort of self-defense thing, whether that be like bear spray or firearm or whatever. Yeah, I'd say those are the big scary ones. I have had a couple of other experiences that weren't really that crazy or anything. I went out the same forest that I film in usually, and man, it's just, you can tell, like, if you go out into the woods a lot, you can kind of get a feel for what the forest is supposed to, for better terms, feel like. You know what's normal and everything, and I just went out in the woods this time, and it was just off. everything was just, I don't know, weird. That feeling of like being watched, that kind of weird heaviness, that kind of like puts you on edge. And I had just gone out just for fun, just, you know, go out and do a little day hike and maybe make something and do some carving like I normally do. And this was before YouTube. I'd say right before. It's probably one of the last times I went out before starting filming and starting this channel. And I went to my normal spot where I usually like stop initially and, you know, fill up a water bottle from the creek because there's a nice spring. And I had stopped, and I remember I sat down, I had filled up my Grail water bottle, and I was just sitting there, I'm like, man, this feels really weird out there. I was the only person at the park, there's no other cars there. And then, you know, you hear your normal like forest sounds, the wind through the trees, the birds and everything, bugs, and I was listening to them and everything, and then just everything went completely quiet. And this was, you know, broad daylight. This is probably 3 p.m. And I just sat there, and it's like, you know, that intense feeling of being watched. And it could just be, you know, paranoia. I think that's kind of built into our DNA from, you know, caveman days is, oh, something's wrong, it doesn't feel right. But yeah, everything went completely quiet. All the bugs got quiet, all the birds got quiet, the wind even stopped, and it was just this eerie silence, which could have been, you know, it usually even the animals don't really care about you. When you're out there, they're just so used to people being out there in that park. It's fairly popular for this area. And yeah, it was just so quiet, and everything was so off that I just packed up and left. Sometimes you just gotta know it's like something's not right, time to leave. And usually when all the animals get quiet like that, it means there's some sort of predator in the area. But yeah, it was just this intense, heavy, spooky feeling. I don't think it was anything supernatural, but it was just so off. And it's like, tell me in the comments if I'm not crazy, you know what I'm talking about. If you spend enough time in the woods, you get the feeling for it. And I mean, I've been going to the woods probably since I was 10, you know, going in the woods near my childhood home and everything at that park. You know, that's where I'd spend all my summers and my weekends hunting for bugs, salamanders, you know, all kinds of little critters. But yeah, and there's other stuff I've stumbled across. I mean, you spend enough time in the woods, you stumble across some spooky stuff. But sorry. I stumbled across like a weird stone circle that someone had made, and it's like the entire like feeling of that area was weird. Not quite sure what was going on there, but it just felt real weird. Felt like a place I shouldn't be at, so I just didn't go there. I've come across a couple, you know, of weird things. The woods where I usually film, it's kind of infamous in our area. People have been dumped out there, bodies have been dumped out there, so that's always like something spooky you're kind of worried about. I always worry about running into a body out there. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for my spooky stories. Oh, no, it is not. Oh, okay, so I like to do a lot of winter camping, and one of my favorite things about winter camping is I love when going out and when there's going to be snow. Because it's like you're in your tent, especially you go out, there's no snow. You set up your tent. It dumps down like an inch or two of fluffy snow. The woods are just so quiet, so serene. All the animals are hunkered down. The bugs are back in hell where they belong. All the mosquitoes and ticks. So I really love going out there. It's just so quiet. You know, you make your morning coffee, you sit by your fire, and you just enjoy this serene, quiet, beautiful, you know, atmosphere. This story is going to sound made up, and I've heard other people tell similar stories, but the place that I had camped at, I had my campsite set up and everything, and there were bare footprints in the snow. Human bare footprints. As I've never packed up so quickly from a camping trip in my entire life, because I just noped right out of there. It was just, I mean, they weren't like super close to my camp. I mean, they were probably like 50 yards out. I had gone to the tree line to go to the bathroom, and I saw those, and I just packed up all my stuff and left. I mean, it was just, I've never gotten out of a place faster than that. And because yeah, no, none of that. It's not something I truck with. I don't. I'm not messing around with forest ghosts. I know people have told me, they're like, oh well, it's probably just someone lost, you know, all this, and it's like, why wouldn't they have shoes? This was one that I don't necessarily believe it's supernatural, but I mean, it has to be in my opinion. I don't know what was going on. Yeah, it could have just been someone messing with me too. I don't know, but it was a pretty remote campsite. You know, thinking back as a more rational, more adult person, I probably should have followed them and seen if someone was lost or something. But yeah, it was not all right. Another experience I had. This is I'll put in the pictures here. I'll pop them up on screen. But I went camping with my brother-in-laws a couple winters ago. The last time I went winter camping, or the time before, I had taken some pictures, you know, while we were camping and everything. And you know, looking at the pictures the next day, I think it was my mother-in-law. Maybe it was my mother-in-law. Someone had pointed out that there were faces in the smoke, and like, normally it's like, okay, well, you take a bunch of pictures of the fire and everything, and you know, I can't remember what the name, apophilia or apopop, I don't remember the scientific word for it, where we see faces and everything. We're just kind of built that way. But man, there was faces in the smoke. Like I said, I'll have them up on screen right now, and I'll kind of show you. I'll show you for a second, you know, without a circle, and then with a circle. And it could just be shapes, but could just be smoke, you know. But you know, I can't even really remember if the vibe was off. We were just, you know, all hanging out. There was 3 of us there, but we were just hanging out, camping, and snap those pictures of the fire. I like to do that. And yeah, those showed up. So yeah, I'll pop those up on the screen now if I can find them. I hopefully can find them. If not, sorry in advance. But yeah, so I thought I'd share those kind of spooky stories. You know, I'll probably have some more next year. I plan on being out in the woods a lot more. I hope I don't know, but these were all pretty spaced out, pretty far apart. Maybe I'll make this like a Halloween tradition. So, you know, maybe on this video, leave me down your scary stories in the comment section. Maybe I'll read them off next year, because I've kind of already went through all mine. You know, not a lot of the old timers, you know, it's funny because you'll run into these guys who have, you know, hunters and, you know, woodsmen and people who work out in the woods, you know, felling trees and stuff. They'll almost always have a really messed up story. But yeah, go ahead and leave those in the comment section. Actually, yeah, I think that's going to be a thing. Leave that in the comment section, and I'll do my best to read them off next year. I think this is going to be kind of a Halloween tradition. And yeah, I think that's all we got for tonight. My 500 subscriber video is going to be coming out soon. I got to work on that tomorrow. It's my first day off, but you know, in a little bit. So mini giveaway is also going to be tomorrow. Gonna make some of the stuff for the big giveaway. I'm already almost at 600 subscribers now, which is not good, but you know, I work full time, so it's kind of, I have to really set aside time to do these videos. But yeah, so yeah, leave your scary story in the comment section. I'll read it next year, or if I get a bunch of them soon enough, maybe I'll read some on Halloween. No, I won't, because I work. Maybe I will. I could always film at night. I just sorry, the cat yelling in the distance made me remember another spooky experience I had that got explained away later on. I was camping with a bunch of friends, and I mean, this was a big party. I think it was someone's 21st birthday party or something, and we all decided to camp on a friend's parents' piece of property, and we partied out there. And I heard this. Me and my friend were sitting there, and everyone was, partying and everything. Everyone was pretty drunk. I had a good buzz going on, and we hear this screaming in the distance, and it sounds like a woman screaming. And so my friend and I look. Oh, excuse me. My friend and I look at each other, and we're like, "Did you hear that?" And she was like, "Yeah, I heard that. Did you hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, I heard that, definitely." And found out like a little bit later that that's just a female fox. It's a vixen, is what they're called. And I'll play some audio of it here so you can kind of hear what they sound like. But yeah, just imagine being drunk in the woods and hearing, that scream. But yeah, so that was a little mini one. But yeah, leave your scary stories in the comment. I'll read them next year. Get out in the woods, stay safe, and happy Halloween.